throughout all of the battles that take place during the 1000-Year Blood War arc of Bleach, the battle against Gerard Valkyrie truly stands out. And this isn't for the length of the battle, but rather for the polarizing effect that it's had on fans. Spanning over 33 chapters, the battle against Gerard pushes the boundaries of storytelling, as Kubo manages to weave in so many narrative themes within the confines of this battle. The major fight against Gerard begins in chapter 647 and it stretches all the way up until chapter 680. The plan to take down this formidable member of the Schutzstaffel involves several Shinigami as they utilize multiple strategies as well as unleashing their absolute raw power in a hope to put a stop to this formidable Quincy. Despite how incredible this battle against Gerard is, it begs the question, how much did it contribute to the overall narrative of the final arc? And how much more do we actually learn about Gerard's character via his final fight, aside from him just being a really invincible antagonist? In my opinion, Kenpachi Hitsugaya and Byakuya's battle against Gerard has a lot of highs, but it also has a few lows. There are moments of sheer brilliance and then instances of missed narrative opportunities. This is especially in regards to Gerard being the vessel that contains the heart of the Soul King. In this video, my aim is to break down and analyze the Shinigami's intense battle against Gerard Valkyrie. Make sure that you stick around until the very end of this video, because I'll be discussing if there was more to Gerard's character rather than him just being a punching bag for the Shinigami to showcase their newfound powers and transformations. This is a very polarizing battle as it balances on the fine line between style and substance, which is often seen within Kubo storytelling. Unfortunately, a lot of these final battles in the 1000-Year Blood War arc ended up being rushed due to Kubo's deteriorating health, so I'll try my best to give this fight as much justice as I can, and will even speculate on how this fight can be improved upon within the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime. So without further delay, here is my complete breakdown and analysis of Kenpachi, Hitsugaya and Byakuya battling against Gerard Valkyrie. Discover the Undead Collection and be amongst the very first to join us on our journey over at getsuga.com. Like I have mentioned, this fight is possibly one of the longest in the entirety of Bleach, just with the number of chapters that it spans over. The fight goes on for about 5 consecutive chapters, but even before the battle against Gerard had become the central focus of the story, the prelude leading up to this fight had taken up almost half of the length of some chapters that had come before it. This prolonged exposure is part of the reason as to why I'm conflicted about this fight. It goes on for so long you begin to wonder if all of this is just necessary. The fight starts at chapter 647 and I'm choosing to start counting from here because one of the main combatants of the fight, Byakuya, enters the stage to fight against Gerard, and the fight then concludes all the way at chapter 680. This is totally insane to imagine how this fight went on for 33 chapters, especially when you consider that it was at this point when Kubo had started to rush the pacing of the story, with a lot of events happening off screen, like Uryu's highly anticipated battle against Hashwald, which we barely got to see in the manga, and by the end of the story we didn't even know the fate of characters like Yoriichi and Urahara, whether if they had even survived the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc. Within chapter 647, Shunsui's epic battle against Lil Barrow is cut off by a scene which shows the remaining Shinigami running towards Yuhabak's tower, but Shinji then from the corner of his eye notices a figure ascending through the air as it immediately catches his attention. However, before he can fully process what is going on, this figure makes a grand entrance, landing right in front of him with a colossal crash. As the dust clears, the Schutzstaffel member Gerard Valkyrie is revealed as he boldly challenges the Shinigami to attack him all at once, as he seems to be implying that he has the strength to defeat all of them. Gerard appears to have bitten off more than he can chew as we return to the fight in chapter 654, where the chapter cuts from Zombie Kira's showdown with Lil Barrow's clones, as we are then shown a severely battered and bruised Gerard Valkyrie, as he has none of the confidence that he was showcasing the last time that we had seen him. I don't think that it was a good idea to ask all of the present Shinigami to attack you all at once, because it appears as though Gerard has succumbed to the combined might of the Shinigami, and if this wasn't enough, his overly long monologues provoke Byakuya to take action. He raises his Zanpakuto, and with a swift and decisive strike, Byakuya Hitsugaya unleashes a torrent of Senbon blades on Gerard's head. He appears to have killed the Schutzstaffel member before he even had a chance to activate his powers. It is pretty ironic when you think about it. The one time that a hero finishes off the villain, it just so happens to be that the villain's powers were tied to taking damage. I think that this is a trope that a lot of shonen stories fall into, where a villain has a unique power but the hero just so happens to have the perfect counter to this power. Bleach does have a bad habit of doing this, especially towards the end of the 1000-year Blood War arc. So as the Shinigami turn around to walk away, Gerard's Shrift ability, the Miracle, is activated as it makes his body grow in size in proportion to the damage that he ended up receiving. Gerard is now towering above the Shinigami and even the buildings surrounding them. Now this is where the tide of the battle turns in Gerard's favor, as he casually defeats all of the Shinigami around him, thus solidifying the fact that Gerard is actually really strong. And rightfully so, somebody of his caliber needs to be properly established as a threat to the Shinigami. Now the battle with Gerard continues in chapter 658, and as you guessed it, we cut away from an ongoing fight between Yoriichi and Askin. Now here we see a gigantic Gerard celebrating his victory over the captains as he monologues to himself about how easy it was to defeat them. Now the Jobber Squad, sorry, I mean the Vizards, they were also in the area and they advanced to attack Gerard. Honestly, I think if Kubo wasn't rushed at this point in the story, then this may well have been their chance to shine, after they had been sidelined for the majority of the 1000-year Blood War arc. So the Vizards holify and attempt to unleash a barrage of attacks, and scratch all of that because they've just been wiped out by a single swing of Gerard's shield. The Quincy then decides to sink the whole city so that the Shinigami plummet to their deaths. Now this attempt ends up being blocked by a massive ice which encases Gerard's arm. This ice had come from none other than Toshiro Hitsugaya, and after a few brief clashes and some introductory remarks, the story once again moves on to another event, and once again we're left with nothing apart from Gerard is just really strong. We catch back up with Gerard in chapter 666, where Hitsugaya and the now conscious Byakuya have teamed up against the Schutzstaffel member. Now the two of them do struggle for quite a bit against Gerard's power. They then end up getting distracted as they talk amongst themselves as Gerard takes the opportunity to lunge towards them for an attack, but then suddenly his arm is literally cut off as it falls to the ground, as Kenpachi Zaraki has just entered the battlefield after having dealt a devastating blow to the Quincy. So now with Kenpachi, Hitsugaya and Byakuya on the battlefield, the real fight against Gerard truly begins. Now while my thoughts so far might imply that I don't like this fight that much, but trust me, now that we have these three captains on the battlefield, this is when things get really good. I'm just shocked that Kenpachi had woken up after having his limbs twisted off by Pranida and then getting knocked out by Mairi, but as soon as he recovers and wakes up, he immediately knows where the next fight is. So with his arm severed, Gerard immediately regenerates a new arm as he happily exclaims that it has grown back even stronger thanks to Kenpachi's attack. Hitsugaya and Byakuya then discuss the intricacies of Gerard's power, but contrastingly, Kenpachi decides that it would be a much better idea to dice up Gerard into pieces in order to prevent him from regenerating. As Kenpachi charges towards Gerard with a slash, he is intercepted by Hitsugaya, who not only parries Kenpachi's attack but orders him to stand down. This is because if Gerard grows any larger now, then he's going to pose a threat to the Soul Society beneath them. Hands down, this is one of my favorite interactions in this entire fight, because once again Kubo uses this moment in order to showcase the character growth for both Kenpachi and Hitsugaya. Firstly, Kenpachi was in a berserker-like state as he was ready to slice up Gerard, but upon really short notice he quickly adjusted his strength so as to prevent himself from hurting Hitsugaya. Now this is further supported by Kenpachi's own words when he states that if he had not restrained himself, then he would have killed Hitsugaya. I think that this is pretty believable, especially when you consider the fact that Hitsugaya and Byakuya were unable to hurt Gerard, but Kenpachi, who was able to cut through anything, was able to immediately slice off the Quincy's arm. So yeah, I think a full force attack from Kenpachi at this point in the story would definitely kill Hitsugaya. Now despite Kenpachi's tough exterior, he is quite a thoughtful character, but this level of consideration, especially on the battlefield, is something new. When he is in the heat of battle, he used to never think about the safety of others, but look at him now, concerned about the safety of Hitsugaya. Now adding to this, when Kenpachi was speaking with Hitsugaya, Gerard had attempted to crush them with a stomp, but Kenpachi counters it by catching Gerard's foot and thus saving Hitsugaya and himself. He wasn't just concerned with stopping Gerard's attack, as he clearly wanted to protect Hitsugaya too. So yeah, this is a totally different side to Kenpachi we are seeing. Now what I found even more impressive was the impact that this had on Hitsugaya's character. Hitsugaya has been characterized as having a very cool exterior, but as we see with his interactions with Aizen, he is in fact a very emotional character. This is why it was so easy for Aizen to exploit him. The young captain's anger could be so intense that he could completely disregard the safety of those around him, especially if he had made up his mind to kill his opponent. This was best showcased in his battle against Gin, when he recklessly activated his Bankai with full intent to kill Genichimaru without taking into consideration the amount of damage that his Bankai would have caused to the surrounding area. And then later, Hitsugaya's inability to keep his cool during the Fate Karakura Town arc led to him losing his battle against Aizen, and thus leading to the complete defeat of the Gotei 13. Hitsugaya stopping Kenpachi here and acting as the voice of reason demonstrates how far he has come as a character, and despite his small stature, it's pretty funny to see him reining in a powerhouse like Kenpachi. And overall, Hitsugaya being more level-headed is something that I love to see. Kenpachi, taking Hitsugaya's advice on board, decides to end the battle swiftly by cutting Gerard's head open. For once, Kenpachi wasn't just acting on his own selfish desire to fight, but in this instance he was actively trying to protect the Soul Society. Usually, Kenpachi would want to prolong a fight for as long as possible, but in this instance he immediately goes all out against Gerard as he takes off his eye patch and releases his Zanpakuto Nozarashi. The Quincy quickly realizes the strength that Kenpachi possesses as he begins to take him seriously. Gerard unsheaths his blade and begins to fight him with all seriousness. Now this is a first because up until now he hasn't even tried to use his sword against the Shinigami. Now during this exchange, it's pretty funny to see how well both Gerard and Kenpachi get along. Gerard explains to Kenpachi about how his sword Hoffnung works so that his opponent would stand a better chance against him. This is similar to how Kenpachi had used to give himself handicaps in order to prolong and enjoy fights. In this instance, Gerard is pretty much doing the same thing so that Kenpachi can put up a better fight against him. It's shortly after this that the two truly begin to go at it. The fight choreography of this segment is really engaging, as Hitsugaya even tries to get involved, but he ends up being saved by Kenpachi once again, as he ends up outpacing Gerard's lunging arm as he bats Hitsugaya out of the way in order to prevent him from getting crushed by Gerard's arm. Honestly, seeing how Kenpachi, Hitsugaya and Byakuya interact with each other during this fight is one of my favorite things about it. As the battle ensues, the ridiculous hacks of Gerard's sword Hoffnung begin to wear Kenpachi down. Hitsugaya and Byakuya notice this and they act quickly as they attack Gerard, but their attacks have very little effect. As Gerard then prepares to finish them off, Kenpachi hears Yachiru's voice. He sees her standing before him as she tells him that if he were to use her properly, then nobody would be able to defeat him. This one moment in isolation isn't a problem because it neither breaks any rules within the Bleach universe, nor does it cause any real issues, but it's the start of what my main problem with this fight is. Now, Kenpachi of course activates his Bankai here and the rest is history. This moment was a culmination of some carefully laid out details throughout the story, and anyone who says otherwise doesn't really know what they are talking about. Now the main issue here is that Kenpachi activates his Bankai and he ends up overwhelming Gerard, even landing a fatal blow against the Quincy. Unfortunately, all that this monumental Bankai power-up does is to serve as a backdrop for Gerard's next power-up. It doesn't really change anything about the situation aside from making the already strong antagonist even stronger. Things get even more frustrating as Kenpachi's physical body deteriorates under the immense force of his Bankai. This robs Kenpachi's Bankai from having any lasting impact. While it's evident that Kubo's health was affecting him here, and all he really wanted to do was to wrap up the story as quickly as possible, it resulted in big reveals feeling lackluster, and the story hurtling towards the finale at breakneck pace, and in general, a lot of the things that happened towards the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc desperately needed more breathing room in order to do justice to the narrative. So after Kenpachi is defeated, Hitsugaya's ice flowers begin to break, and we get the reveal that these ice flowers were not a time limit for how long he could hold his Bankai, but instead they were more like a countdown leading up to the proper release of his Bankai. Now considering how how long the fight against Gerard had gone on for, it makes sense that Hitsugaya was able to exhaust the time limit of his Bankai in order to activate his full power, as the young captain's body transforms into an adult form. This is thanks to him awakening the completed version of Daiguren Hyorinmaru. Hitsugaya then proceeds to dominate Gerard, and all things considered, this is an absurdly high jump in power level. It is so deeply satisfying to see Hitsugaya unleash his full power against such a strong opponent. And for once, I have to thank God that Hitsugaya does not lose. Now this moment is followed by another really cool sequence where Hitsugaya's ice and Kenpachi's strength creates the perfect opening for what is probably the most brutal finish in the entire manga, as Byakuya activates Ika Senjinka. This is an attack which flat out kills Gerard. This fight is on a massive scale and it has a lot of spectacle, and I think that this is what Kubo was going for. I mean, everything that Hitsugaya, Kenpachi and Byakuya did in the end had little to no consequence, because unsurprisingly Gerard continues to survive and he just grows stronger and stronger following every attack or every instance that he is killed. This seemingly invincible opponent ends up being killed when Yhwach just decides to flick the off switch after he casts Ashvalan and he takes back the power from the Schutzstaffel members. This is a really divisive fight and it makes me wonder how it's going to be adapted into Core 4 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime. Like I've repeatedly mentioned, despite there being a lot of power-ups and reveals during this fight, in the grand scheme of things, all of these reveals have little to no consequence on the larger story that is being told. And ultimately, this is very disappointing. Kenpachi's Bankai, Hitsugaya's completed Bankai, and lastly Byakuya's Ika Senjinka, all of these things needed to be properly utilized within the story, and not just shoehorned into a fight for the sake of spectacle. There is a lot that the anime can expand upon with this section of the story. One major part of Gerard's story which was barely touched upon within the manga is that Gerard has the heart of the Soul King within his body. This is something that I think that the anime will definitely expand upon, and I hope that it leads to Hitsugaya, Byakuya and Kenpachi getting the spotlight that they truly deserve, and I'm also praying that the involvement of the Vizards is also fixed, because again they were severely underutilized during the 1000 Year Blood War arc. So hopefully the anime doesn't use Gerard as a dummy for the Shinigami to test their new power-ups against. I do have a lot of hope because I wasn't expecting the changes that were made to Core 2 of the 1000 Year Blood War arc. I definitely wasn't expecting Shinji's Bankai to be revealed, let alone Senjumaru's Bankai being revealed, and then an entire expansion upon the Zero Division versus the Schutzstaffel towards the end of Core 2. All of that stuff was absolutely mind-blowing, and knowing that Core 3 and Core 4 will each adapt less material from the manga means that there is going to be a lot more room for anime exclusive scenes and instances where they can expand upon the manga and give some of these rushed fights the breathing room that they so desperately need. So we've reached that point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about Kenpachi, Hitsugaya and Byakuya versus Gerard Valkyrie? While there are instances of this fight that I absolutely love, there's just way too much missed opportunity here for me to feel properly satisfied for how this fight was told within the manga. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with me? Definitely continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.